What is up? Welcome back to the channel. So today we got a pretty easy, quick install. As you can see behind me, we got the TJ, the 2003 Rubicon, and we got a fun little upgrade for it. So this is a manual, so let's check this out. All right, so this is what we're working with. As you can see, we've already got everything torn out, so it's gonna make this install that much easier, that much quicker for us. I guess technically it won't be a full install video because the center console is already out, which is something that you'll have to remove, just that center console. But that's already done for us because he's doing some rhino lining, putting some new seats in here, just kind of giving this old TJ just kind of a new look on the inside and making it a little bit more comfortable. With that, today we'll be taking out this stock shifter. As you can see, I think it's in gear right now, and you can kind of see just a lot of play, a lot of slop. The other day I was actually driving this. I think I went for, oh gosh, what was it? I was looking for fourth, actually accidentally slipped it into second, just because there's a lot of slop and a lot of play in here. So the short throw that we'll be installing today is going to eliminate all that, going to tighten it up. Obviously, like the name says, a shorter throw, and just makes, in my personal opinion, makes these old TJs or any manual just a lot more fun to drive with the short throws in there. So let's go check out the parts that we got. All right, so this is everything that we got from B&M. Man, this thing is nice, and you can tell already just before you even get started that it's gonna be a lot tighter, a lot nicer. Came with a new ball for the top, which I think he might end up swapping this out down the road. And then the boot for this, which will be underneath that floor plate. And then one other thing that we got, you don't necessarily need, but you might need. And I'll show you once we get into the install, especially once we pull out the old one, where it goes. But on the bottom of here, there's a plastic kind of cap that you can see here. I guess I should have pulled it out of the plastic, but you can pop off your old one and reuse it. Sometimes though, you know, with this being a 2003, it's what, coming up on 21, 22 years old now. It can get worn out, this plastic can get brittle, or it can wear, and that can actually cause some of your play. So we went ahead and got a new one before we installed all this, and then that way we can just put a brand new one on. We don't have to worry about getting the old one off, and we'll just use that, and just everything's new on the shifting side of it. You do need some RTV silicone. That'll be for the bottom of this, the mounting of this. And then it does come with some good instructions, so no need to print those off or anything. And yeah, that's pretty much everything. So we'll hop into it. Should be a pretty quick and easy install. All right, so getting started on the inside here. I think I've got you set up kind of where you can see everything. Right up here on the front of your shifter, you've got a hex head or a star pattern, a T45 bolt right here. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll be able to lift our shifter up out of the way. Maybe. Golly. All right. Next up, so this is our four-wheel drive shifter right here. So the plate for our four-wheel drive shifter kind of sits over on top of our plate for our shifter that we need to move. So we're gonna unbolt these 5 bolts right here, and we should be able to shift it over just enough to where whenever we take this plate out for our shifter, we can pull it out. And I know it kind of probably all looks like one plate, but you should be able to see a little bit more once we get this one loosened up and out of the way. Okay, so right now I've got that plate loosened and pulled up. I'm going to leave these other 3 bolts in. I think just over time they just don't want to come out, but honestly, looking at it, I should just be able to unscrew all of our bolts all the way around this plate over here, and then once I get all those all completely out, we should be able to get it out. If not, I'll come back and I'll go ahead and finish removing those 3 bolts. All right, we'll just take a little closer look here. So now this is your stock shifter. So pretty much we're gonna remove those 4 bolts that are holding this in. You can see 2 on this side, that other one's kind of in the shadow there, but we'll remove the 4 bolts and we'll be able to pull this off, and then we'll basically put down some RTV silicone and throw on the new one. Now with this plate, like I said, I left in these 2 bolts. All I need is for this plate to come up some, and that way I can slide out our other plate, our main shifter plate. These two bolts right here will have to be fully removed in order to get that out. These other bolts we can just loosen up just enough to slide that plate out. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get our stock shifter, get it out completely. There we go. Okay, and you see there, that's our stock shifter. You can see this is where that plastic piece is that normally we would pop off and throw on our new one, but we just went ahead and bought a new one altogether, so we'll pop it on our B&M short throw. And then you can see here, kind of got a gasket around there. Looks like a gasket might have been leaking a little bit, so with the B&M, we'll be using RTV silicone, so we'll have a nice good seal and make sure that nothing's leaking out of the top of our transmission, making a mess, kind of like this one already is. So right now what I'm doing, I'm just wiping any oil off of that surface, and then if it needs to be cleaned, I'll clean it, but as I'm wiping it off here, it's looking pretty good. I'm just gonna make sure we get all that oil off of that surface. And then you also wanna be careful not to knock any debris into your transmission, which the top of this one is actually pretty clean. Had a few random pieces of junk, but I made sure to knock those away from the opening and just keep everything out of the inside of your transmission. Took a closer look real fast, so we went ahead and got a little bit of brake clean, wiped down the top of this surface here so it's nice and clean. And then you can see this is where that plastic piece or the bottom of your shifter, that's where it sets down into. So everything looks good on the top here, got it all clean. Now we're ready to put on a bead of silicone all the way around this surface here, and then we'll slide our B&M shifter on. All right, now, so on our B&M shifter, I'm just gonna make sure that this bottom surface is clean, and then you can see that's our new plastic cap, which I've already popped it down onto the ball there on the bottom of the shifter. So on this, we just want that shifter, if you can tell, it's angled towards the driver, so it's gonna slide on just like this. Yeah. All right, so it took a minute to get that plastic piece lined up in there. I can't remember if I left it in neutral, so it's easier if, make sure you're in neutral and it's, you know, in the center, not in a gear. Whenever you first install it, it'll make it a lot easier getting that lined up. But I finally got it dropped in. Now I'm just getting all of our bolts started. Yeah. Okay, so finally got it installed. Now the torque specs for those 4 bolts are only 5 to 7 foot-pounds. So I mean, obviously we don't have a torque wrench that goes that low. Just snug them up, just be real careful, don't overdo it. But let's take a look here. All right, so there you can see now it's installed. Got a little bit of RTV coming out on the sides there, which is good. And you can already tell, I mean, it's a lot less play. Man, this thing, it feels good now. So huge difference. I don't know how much you can tell in the video, but that's gonna be a huge difference on the shifting. Okay, so now that we got the shifter installed and got our bolts tightened down, you wanna make sure that you can find every gear. Make sure that everything's running smoothly. And I'll tell you what, with this short throw, it is very short. The gears are very close together and it is hard to tell. So actually what we did, even though we don't have any seats, we threw a couple buckets in here and took it out on this test drive and just made sure that we were actually hitting every gear, because just sitting there and trying to put it in gear, it's so close and so tight. It was really hard to tell, especially since, you know, we don't have our seats in there and you're not just sitting in there like you normally would. So we wanted to make sure, so we went out on a quick test drive, and sure enough, yes, we're good. We have all the gears, everything is working like it should. Feels great, and it's gonna be, man, it's gonna be really nice once we get all this interior done and everything buttoned back up and we can actually go out on a good test drive. This shifter is gonna be amazing. So next thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and get our boot that's gonna be internal. It'll be underneath our cover plate. So we'll go ahead and throw this boot on. Now there is inside of here a kind of just a little lock ring or whatever. So we'll slide that on, and then slide our boot on and make sure it's seated all the way to the bottom, and then we'll just put that lock ring around the bottom of that rubber boot. All right, next up we can go ahead and throw back on our cover plate. Just backwards. And you want to make sure that this plate slides underneath your four-wheel drive shifter. Make sure you don't have any wiring caught underneath. All right, good and lined up. Now we'll just throw everything back in, just the opposite of what we took it out. Okay, so that's it. Once you reinstall that cover plate, we are done. Now normally, obviously, we would reinstall our center console and this whole center section, and then we have another boot that goes on. I will say on the factory boot, it's got a kind of like a lock ring that holds that boot up where it needs to be. On this shifter, it's a lot thicker, so I think that boot will stay up by itself. Now, if you did have an issue with that boot sagging too much, you could just get a hose clamp, throw a hose clamp on here about the height that you want it, and then slide your boot over, and that would keep the top of your boot from sagging. But like I said, I think we're gonna be good without it. And then the last thing you do is throw on your shifter. Once you get it lined up, where you want it, then you have a lock nut on the top here. You would tighten up into it, and then that way it would stay where you want it. But that's it. I mean, that's our short throw. And I wish that I probably should have done a before and after, but since we're doing some other modifications in here, this was the perfect time to throw that shifter in, because we got everything torn out. And then, like I said, we're gonna rhino line it and everything. But trust me when I say, beforehand, this thing was sloppy, and now it's gonna be just really nice to drive. And that's kind of what we're doing right now. We're getting this thing roadworthy, making it more comfortable and making it enjoyable. And then eventually we're gonna start throwing some more off-road heavy duty modifications to it, a long arm lift and some nicer rocker rails and some other stuff. We're gonna start doing some more stuff to this down the road, but right now, just wanna make it comfortable and just wanna make it enjoyable and just wanna make it roadworthy. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope you like, subscribe, and maybe this will help you out a little bit whenever you're installing your short throw. See you next time.